As of recent, the only thing Stephen King seems to be very interested in is pissing off people on Twitter. However, what he did as of late is create an adaptation of his book, The Long Walk, that may be one of the best movies that have come out this year. Now, obviously, he didn't make the movie, he wrote the novel. The movie is what I want to talk about specifically here. The Long Walk is a film I had no anticipation was going to be as good as it is, and I went and saw it after all the reviews that I watched, and everybody talked about the film being really great and actually like a whole synopsis / different look at the human race and personalities and everything together. And whenever I read about this movie and being like, oh my god, like it's just a bunch of people walking in a straight line. If you stop walking, you're dead. Pretty simple. How could that possibly be any good? And then I watched it and I was like, holy shit, this movie is unbelievable. Excuse my voice, I'm getting a little sick as the weather changes in St. Louis seem to go from 74 degrees to 104. Not cool, kind of messed up, but we keep it pushing, I guess. So yeah, The Long Walk. Does it live up to Stephen King's original writing that he made when he was 19 years old? Is it better, or does it just kind of fail altogether? Well, I think it's better. I think it's really great. Obviously, I didn't read the book, but I read and watched some comparisons on the book to the movie, and the movie seems to do a lot of corrections that I actually enjoy more than the book version did. I think it's very funny how sometimes it's the movies that you don't expect to be very good end up being the ones that create classics. I'm not saying that The Long Walk is a classic by any means, but another movie that I can kind of think of that nobody expected to be as good as it was John Wick. John Wick was, a smaller time movie before it became a super mega Hollywood blockbuster. And I don't know if The Long Walk is going to succeed in box office to that level. I imagine it's not. But as far as reviews go, I would say it's up there as far as movie-wise. But getting into the film, The Long Walk is exactly what I just said. The book follows 100 kids walking in a dystopian type future. The book kind of chops it down to 50 people, which kind of makes more sense for the movie standpoint. And in the book, it was these people who are walking have to walk at 4 miles per hour. In the movie, they changed it to 3 miles per hour. A fun fact about that is because in the book, people, whenever the book originally came out, treadmills weren't as accessible and people didn't actually know how fast 4 miles per hour was. 4 miles per hour, it's not fast, but it's not slow. It's certainly kind of quicker than a walk. It's a speed walk. And this is supposed to be in a casual walk. And the question is, how far can you actually casually walk? Now it's in a dystopian future, like I just said, where everything's sick and twisted and people have these insane games that they come up with. And that's when the Major here comes up with this great idea. I don't know if I can't remember if he came up with it or not. But essentially, 50 kids, if you stop more than 3 times, you get 3 warnings. Your warnings aren't absolved for an hour. So no matter when you stop, if you can't stop to take a shit, if you stop more than a few seconds, they just kill you because you're getting followed by a convoy and they just murder you flat out. And yeah, it's a pretty simple concept. Kind of reminds me of the Hunger Games, I guess, in a way, which I'm sure the Hunger Games took inspiration from this in some capacity. Obviously not exactly, but it's kind of that same element. Kids kind of fighting for their lives. It's kind of sick and twisted. But the winner of The Long Walk, the last person standing, gets a wish granted, and they do a lot of really cool things with this wish that kind of drive why people are in the walk, and we'll kind of get all of the characters and their motivations here in a second. But one thing that was really, I don't know, pulling to this movie is that they don't pull back on the gore in this movie at all. Which is really hard to watch because a lot of the people, the characters in this film are supposed to be teenagers. They're young adults. And that was one of Stephen King's apparently priorities or things that he needed to be done in this film was that they asked him if they could adapt this book into a movie, and he said, yeah, you can adapt it only if you show the kids getting killed. No off screens. And there's a couple kind of semi-off screens, but it's brutal. There's one kid, poor bastard, gets a cramp, and he literally cannot walk anymore because he's got a Charlie horse in his calf, and they blow his face clean off. And dude, it's brutal. The deaths in this movie are brutal. And that kind of hits to the emotional elements of it. It makes you feel like way worse, like so much worse. It definitely kind of raises the stakes. By the end of the movie, I will say I got a little numb to it because something happens that I'll kind of get to. And there's spoilers in this, by the way. Whoops. That I'll kind of get to later. But yeah, man, rough stuff. Like if you stop at all, if you get a cramp, you're dead. If you had to take a shit, you die. This poor kid got fucking diarrhea and he couldn't even take a shit. And he pulled his pants down to let out some shit, and by the time he got walking again, they already blew him away. Wild. The two main characters in this are Ray and Pete, and it's really cool kind of seeing how they ended up in the walk and how their bond is formed over the course of the movie. I thought it was brilliantly done because the movie can only be so long, and the way that these characters are kind of like they're bonded, I think that's really clever. Because there's only two ways that you can go about this movie, and if you were actually in the long walk itself, there's two different paths. You can go for this one versus all type of thing, or you can kind of form this brotherhood, and that's what Ray and Pete do. Pete being in the movie because he kind of has this sense of optimism about him. It's in his character. It's always about his belief, and he's in the walk because he kind of has more to gain than he really has more to lose. He doesn't really care if he dies, but he is always optimistic about the future and about his life. Cooper Hoffman's character, wow, he's actually really good. He plays Ray, who is in the walk because if he wins the walk, he's going to ask for a rifle to shoot the Major because the Major is responsible for the death of his dad. Now, from what I've read, by the end of this book, there is a switch here wherever the survivors are not the same as they are in the movie. And spoiler alert coming up here, in the book, I believe Ray is the one who wins. He gets the rifle, shoots the Major, but he continues walking. Now, in the movie, Peter tries to lay down. I believe it's not Peter in the book. I don't think it is. But Peter tries to sit down because he's like, I literally cannot do this anymore. And because Ray has grown such an attachment to him and believes in his worldview and his optimism, helps Ray stand up and continue to find the final walk. And that's when Ray kind of like sacrifices himself in a way, and he lays down and lets the Major shoot him. And by the way, that's not off screen either. They shoot him square in the head. And it was like, oh boy. That's when I like the rumor of Stephen King like being strict about the kids dying on screen. That's how I knew it was real, because they on-screened the main character in a brutal way, and it's shocking. The ending that's changed is they have Pete ask for the rifle, and he shoots the Major and fulfills Ray's wish, and he also wins the long walk and gets to survive. However, he kind of like destroys his worldview and his optimism, because when he was talking to Ray earlier in the film, he says that you like taking a life kind of it just continues the cycle, and Ray and Pete in a way continues the cycle, and he puts down the rifle and continues to walk. It's a very defeating moment, because yes, the main villain of the movie, the Major, does die, and he does deserve to die. But it comes at the cost of such an optimistic character's worldview, where he falls down and stumbles for a moment. And your only hope as he walks down the road is that he finds his way eventually in the future. And the good news is that he kind of gets to do that, or at least gets to attempt to find his optimism again, because Ray let him survive. I kind of love shit like that. I think that that's very, very neat and very cool. But yeah, it's the character building moments. It's the emotional sentiment in this film, and it's the themes that it manages to juggle with such an interesting concept. The acting in this movie is really, really brilliant. Hoffman, as I said, who's the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman, who and he's so young. Cooper's so young. He's only 22 years old, and he looks a lot like his dad, by the way. But he sells like the death of these kids, whenever the kids are dying in this movie, he sells it so well. It's very, very emotional. I feel like without the acting in this film being as good as it is for such young actors, the movie wouldn't be nearly as good. I wouldn't be able to buy into the emotional element as much, but they all do such a brilliant job. David Johnson is really great in this film too. The actor who plays the Major is played by Mark Hamill, who's a bastard in this movie. Mark Hamill's Mark Hamill. I mean, of course, Mark Hamill's great. Judy Greer's in this thing momentarily. I thought that she did very well as well. So yeah, if you're looking for a really one of the best movies that have come out this year, in my opinion, check out The Long Walk. It makes you think. It's crushing. It's soul crushing for sure, but it's really good. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next couple days. We're going to talk about The Black Phone, The Black Phone 2. I think that has the potential to be the best horror movie of this year. And then we got some other things to talk about too that I'm pretty excited for. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, love, adios, and bye-bye.